Good afternoon. My name is Susan. I'm here for Erin Public Library, and we're doing another version of Crafting at Home. Today we are making a sentiment jar, and when I started going through my scrapbook papers to see what I had, I found these lovely animal prints, and we have had a lot of examples of strong, courageous people in our communities, and I saw those animal prints and decided I wanted to go with the words courage, strength, and bravery. And obviously I've used an empty coffee beverage jar. We're going to make another one here today, and I just selected some spring colors and spring papers. And again, out of our time of quarantine, I grabbed some words that we've heard a lot. So togetherness, love, and patience, and those are the sentiments that we're going to use. Our supplies today include scrapbook paper hearts. These hearts, this one is 4.5 inches, this one is 3.5 inches, 2.5 inches, and there's a tiny 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch heart that matches each of those patterns. We're using some sentiment flags right here with some coordinating colored buttons, and I'll show you how we put those together and got them on the hearts. I have 3 pieces of ribbon. Pink, yellow, and gold, again, things to complement the colors that we've selected. And I also have some colorful straws. The 2 taller straws are approximately 10 inches. The shorter one, the yellow one, is 8 inches. I am going to be using another empty coffee jar, and I'm keeping the lid, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now, you don't have to use an empty coffee beverage jar. Other jars would work. This is an oil jar. This is an empty food jar. This is a plastic water bottle. That would work. But notice it has some added weight on the bottom. You need things with a little bit of weight, because even though the straws and the paper hearts are not heavy, if you don't have some weight in the container, it would pull over. It wouldn't stand up correctly. So we are going to use the coffee jar again. Now, I took the lid, and there are 3 holes in here. I don't know if you can see them. You could put the holes in using a nail and a hammer and a piece of wood. You could use a drill. My suggestion is make the holes bigger in circumference than the circumference of the straw or dowel rod that you're using. They're going to be a little wobbly in there, but we're going to glue them in place when we're done. So I'm going to take the lid and I'm going to screw it on the jar. That's step number 1. And I'm ready to go. You don't have to have a cover on there. This one doesn't. That's totally up to you, a personal choice. Now I'm going to take the 3 ribbons. They were all originally 18 inches when I started. They've already been trimmed. My suggestion is that you not trim them. Don't trim them. That way you can trim them to match the space that you're going to put the jar in. And all I'm going to do is tie them around the neck of the jar. And I'm just going to use 2 knots. Now, it's not very tight, but that's going to be okay, because that way you can swing it around to whatever you decide is the front of the jar. The other thing is that we can use that to our advantage. We can work with it this afternoon, and then when you're happy with where it is, you can always add a dot of hot glue to make it stay in place. Now, the one thing I forgot to mention, these jars do have a front and a back. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a date stamped in the glass. You want that to be on the back because that's not going to come off no matter how hard you wash. So, I now have my jar. I have the knot positioned right in front of one of the circles for the triangle where the hearts and straws are going to go. I'm going to put this to the side for a minute, and we're going to talk about the hearts. Now, as I said, this is a 4.5 inch, a 3.5, and a 2.5 inch heart. What I did was I just took a little flag, and I'll show you how I made one. I took the word togetherness. You could certainly use whatever words you wish. All I did was put a little dot of hot glue right on that edge of the flag, just like that. And I attached a coordinating button, just like that. And I did that with the others. Now, I printed these tags on the computer. You could certainly do them by hand. You can cut them out of a newspaper or a magazine. It does not take long for them to set up. And your decorative flags are ready to go. Now, what I did was I took, and in the upper left-hand corner of each heart, I took a flag and I glued it, and all I did was put a touch of glue on here and put it on the heart in that upper left-hand corner going across. You certainly don't have to do it that way. You can hang it, you can have it so it comes off the side of the heart, but you need to consider how the hearts are going to be in the jar. The other thing you might want to consider is waiting and not putting the flags on until after the heart is in the jar. That is certainly up to you. We'll take care of these little ones just towards the end of our project. So now I'm going to show you how I attach the hearts to the straws. The smallest heart, the 2.5 inch one, is going to get attached to the 8-inch straw. So what I'm going to do is put a river of glue, a thin little river of glue on the back of the heart, and I want to go from the dip in the heart all the way down to the point. Then I'm going to take the straw, I'm going to lay it in that river of glue and just kind of hold it there for a minute. You can do it flat, you can hold it. It does not take long for it to set up. You just want to make sure that the straw does not project up past that dip in the heart. So the first one is done, I'm just going to let it sit there. Then I am going to take the second heart and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to go from the dip all the way to the tip with a river of glue. And this is one of the 10-inch straws. And I am just going to hold it in place for a minute. Now this one we're going to handle a little differently because we definitely want this one to be taller and project up the top of the jar. So instead of putting the glue from the dip down to the tip, I'm only going to go halfway. So I'm going to put a river of glue halfway. I'm going to take another 10-inch straw and I'm just going to hold it here for a minute. And again, you have to be careful because hot glue and all you have is a layer of cardstock here. You will feel the heat through the paper. Give it just a minute to set. What we're going to do is we're now going to put these into the jar. And obviously the short one, the 8-inch one, is going to go in the front hole. Now again, if this hole is big and the heart is wobbling around, don't worry about that. When we're done and when you're happy with the placement of the heart, we're just going to put a dot of hot glue in there and it will hold it where you want it to be. Sometimes if you take the straw and put it in a particular position against the wall of the jar, that helps to give it some stability. Then we're going to take the next one and it's going to go in the hole. And again, put it all the way down to the edge of the jar. And we're going to take the final one. Get rid of all the hot glue strings. We're going to put this in. And again, put it against the wall of the jar. So I can see all of my sentiments, which is important. I like that idea. I like those where they are. So I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I am just going to put a touch of hot glue right where the straw meets the lid or paper, whichever you want to look at. And I'm going to do it for each one. It's hot glue, it's going to dry clear, you won't see it. And you do have just a couple seconds if you want to reposition where things are. So that's where we are so far. And our last step is I'm going to take these 3 tiny hearts, which are from the same paper as the big hearts, and I am going to glue them to the jar right here, kind of like buttons. Think of buttons like a snowman. And I'm just going to put a dot of glue, and I am going to attach these to the jar. Now you could, if you wanted to, instead of putting them on the jar, you could attach them to the ends of the ribbon. That would be a way to go. You could do that. They don't have to be in any specific order. They're just here as a decoration. I do kind of like to tilt them a little bit. And there you go. A spring sentiment jar made from a coffee beverage jar. Enjoy.